I came home from work to the sound of my neighbor's screams. His girlfriend threw acid in his face over suspicions of cheating. Yesterday was like any other long day at work. I was exhausted and looking forward to just kicking back, taking a quick shower and maybe playing some Xbox. But as soon as I got home, I heard the most terrifying scream. It echoed through our usually peaceful neighborhood, the kind of scream that instantly makes your heart sink. Living in a quiet area, any loud noise is unusual, let alone something so chilling. My parents heard it too, and without a word, we all rushed out of the house to see what was going on. The scream came from the direction of our neighbor Ezekiel's place. A small crowd was already gathering, people murmuring in shock and confusion. Ezekiel was one of those people you'd describe as quiet but respectful. He kept to himself, but he'd always been polite and warm to anyone who crossed his path. None of us would have expected anything like this to happen to him. As we got closer to the house, I could see why everyone was in such a state of horror. Ezekiel was there, sitting on the ground, trembling and burned. Acid had eaten away at his face, his chest and his arms. It was a sight I'll never be able to forget. He was in so much pain that he couldn't even scream anymore. The acid was visibly eating away at his skin, leaving horrifying wounds as it spread. People were shouting for someone to call 911, while others tried to figure out what exactly had happened. I managed to get close enough to ask him, and through gritted teeth, he whispered a name. Darla. Darla was his girlfriend, and he told us, in the few words he could manage, that she had done this to him, thinking he was cheating on her. I was completely stunned. Darla? She'd been around for a while, and nothing about her had ever seemed off. But there she was, in the middle of the chaos, her hand slightly burned as well, but nowhere near as badly as Ezekiel was. She started screaming, accusing him of cheating and even saying he had thrown the acid at her first. But looking at Ezekiel's injuries, that explanation made no sense. The acid burns on his body were devastating. Far worse than anything she had. I didn't know if she was in shock or genuinely trying to lie her way out of it, but her story was obviously falling apart in front of us. The police finally arrived, and as we tried to help Ezekiel move, I realized something even worse he couldn't see. The acid had taken his sight. We tried to flush his eyes with water, desperately hoping we could somehow help, but it was too late. The acid had already done its damage, and Ezekiel had lost his vision. Standing there, I felt a wave of anger and sadness. Imagine losing your sight, your window to the world, in such a horrific way, all because someone decided to take revenge based on a suspicion. As the police tried to arrest Darla, she resisted, claiming she was the real victim. A few of the neighbors helped hold her down until the officers managed to get her in handcuffs. Meanwhile, a fire had broken out in Ezekiel's house. Darla, it turns out, had set his belongings on fire before attacking him. So now, as if the acid attack wasn't enough, his home and everything he owned were going up in flames. The fire department arrived just in time to contain the blaze, but it was clear that most of his things were beyond saving. As the firefighters worked, one of the neighbors told us that Darla had been acting suspicious for weeks, convinced that Ezekiel was cheating on her every time he went out. Whether or not he actually was cheating, I don't know, and honestly, it doesn't even matter. Nothing justifies ruining someone's life like that. Today, Ezekiel is in the hospital, and the doctors aren't sure what his recovery will look like, but we all know that the physical and emotional scars of this are going to stay with him forever. It's hard to believe that something like this could happen so close to home, and all because of jealousy, accusations and anger. Looking back, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that one person's suspicions could lead to this level of destruction. Update. Ezekiel, thankfully, survived the attack. He's still dealing with the scars, both physically and emotionally, but he's incredibly strong. The worst part is that he lost his sight completely. The acid damage was too severe for doctors to save his vision. He's still adjusting to living blind, learning how to navigate the world in a completely different way. It's been a hard transition for him, but his spirit hasn't wavered. Ezekiel's resilience through all of this has been incredible to witness. He's already learning Braille and uses a guide stick, and his family and friends have rallied around him to help him adapt. Darla was arrested on the night of the attack, and her trial took months. She tried to maintain that she'd acted in self-defense, but there was overwhelming evidence against her. Witnesses, including myself and others who saw Ezekiel's condition, made it clear who the real victim was. After a long court process, Darla was convicted and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Knowing that she's behind bars now brings some relief to our neighborhood, especially considering the pain she caused Ezekiel and the community. Ezekiel also sued her for the damages caused by the attack. Since she destroyed his belongings, burned down parts of his house, and left him permanently disabled, he was awarded a substantial settlement. Part of that went to covering his medical bills, therapy, and adapting his home to be more accessible. And because I was involved in helping and witnessing the trauma firsthand, I received a settlement for damages as well, which I honestly didn't expect. While nothing can give Ezekiel back his eyesight or undo the damage Darla inflicted, the legal victory has at least provided him with financial security moving forward. Ezekiel is focused on rebuilding his life. He's even mentioned wanting to advocate for other victims of similar attacks, hoping to raise awareness and offer support. It's hard to believe that one night of jealousy and rage could lead to all of this. But seeing Ezekiel push forward and find new purpose is inspiring, even if it's bittersweet. He's living proof that while tragedies can change us forever, they don't have to destroy us.